There is no way we are going to be able to pull this off without...
Welcome to a Decoding TV bonus episode about the Invincible Season 4 finale. I'm David Chen. Joining me, as usual, is Patrick Klepek. Patrick, Invincible Season 4 just wrapped up. We've generally been fans of the show. I am curious, what did you think of Season 4 overall?
I was ready for the show to start wrapping up, and at many points during the season, it really felt like we were coming to a conclusion on the Invincible story, even though I knew, according to the comics, maybe we were halfway there. And I gotta say, by the end, they completely sold me on this show going as long as it needs to. I really, really liked this season. I think what's particularly impressive about it is that the vast majority of the season was concerned with the parts of the show I was the least interested in. I know we differ on this front,
yes,
which is that
I am most interested in this, right? Yeah. So
very early on, you were like, "Oh, the stuff that's happening in the rest of the universe with the Viltrumite Empire, I want the show to point at that." And for me, it's like, no, I'm much more interested in the Earth level concerns of what's happening in this world. And every time we divert over to the Viltrumite sort of galactic sprawl, I'm wondering, when are we getting back to Earth? And I think part of that was because it was splitting its time like disproportionately, right? Like very little time was being spent advancing the Viltrumite storyline, making us engaged with it, caring for it, like giving us characters to glom onto, villains to hate.
Yeah.
And by the time Conquest is introduced at the end of the previous season,
yeah,
you are a little more primed. Like, what is going on with these people? And this
also,
season,
Conquest seems to have some deep-seated psychological issues.
Yeah,
he should work out far away from planet Earth.
Men won't go to therapy, and Viltrumites definitely won't go to therapy. And this season spends an extraordinary amount of time and energy investing in this plot line, and I think to great payoff. I think the time we spend there and then where we end up at the end of this season is part of why I'm so energized to see where the show goes from here, because I am now fully invested in the more galactic sprawl, the arc of the Viltrumites, what's left of them, and how that intersects with our characters. It's about to make the Earth stuff way more interesting. I have no idea where it goes, but I'm like, I know people are mad, rightfully so, that the animation in this show has taken a pretty severe drop-off as it's moved to an annualized sort of release schedule. The storytelling is so strong that I wish it was better, but if it means that I get to have this story continue along at a notable pace on an annual basis, the storytelling, the voice acting is so strong that I'm willing to forgive the fact that the fights are broadly not as dynamic and as interesting as they were before, because they pick and choose their moments, right? We'll get into it, but the second to last episode is a tour de force of concept, animation, execution. And so the highs are still very high, and I don't know that I've ever been higher on the show, which is not really where I expected to be by the end.
Yeah, gotta say, I've always been like, the relationship between Mark and his father has always been the most interesting to me in the show, and so I was very disappointed that whole plotline is basically put on hold for like 4 years since the season 1 debuted, and I was so happy that they came back to it this season. Just as FYI, I did get this text message from frequent Decoding TV contributor and co-host Dan Gvozden. Dan heard me talking about Invincible Season 4 on the Filmcast, and he said, "I'm listening to you talk about Invincible and asking, how can they top this? And let me tell you, it hasn't even come close to where the comic goes and where I imagine the show will ultimately go. So hold on to your butts is all I can say." End quote. So that's Dan Gvozden. And also, I did invite him on the podcast, but he has not been watching the show. He knows what's in the comics. And he says, "I'm so excited for the world to experience what is coming." End quote. So
I have no idea what that could mean.
So that's Dan Gvozden's comments on what's coming. Robert Kirkman, the creator of the comics, has said that he would like the show to continue for 7 to 9 seasons. And so we're at this puts us about halfway through the show, which is exciting if we get that far. And season 5 of the show will apparently premiere in 2027. So as you said, they are moving to an annualized basis. I will say, yeah, I kind of had really started to lose interest in the show after season 3, but then Conquest, like that was really a fairly compelling episode, one of the highest rated episodes of the series. And then I got to say, this season was overall just a big win. I mean, some amazing sequences and concepts, and of course, as you said, the penultimate episode is just mind blowing in so many ways. Like the penultimate episode of season 4 of Invincible introduces, in a big way, Thrag as this villain who is so OP, like just so overpowered. It's like you are so impressed, and as a viewer, you're like, how are they ever going to defeat this guy? How are they ever going to defeat this guy? And I love when a show puts you in that position of like, oh, that person is so formidable. It's like you can't even come up with a way to do it, really. So I loved all that. I loved all that. And yeah, I am now so into the show, especially now, like, hey, annual basis, like annual basis, and like we're probably in some of the more interesting parts of this plot. I am so in and really excited. Now, Patrick, before we talk about some of the events that happened this season, you mentioned the animation quality, and some people comment that it has taken a hit. And I guess, like, maybe let's just talk briefly about that. It sounds like you agree. I would say the animation quality does not feel particularly high to me this season. And some of the big battles look pretty good, and it feels like they put all their effort into that, right? But in general, I think some people find the animation to be too simplistic, the character design to be too simplistic, and maybe that's just the price we pay for moving to the schedule we're on. But what do you think, Patrick?
When I see people point out direct comparisons to stuff earlier in the series, I nod my head and I go, I agree. That does seem like it's gotten worse. But I think it's gotten worse out of not laziness, but efficiency, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think if Invincible were coming out at the pace it seems to be like they're targeting, to make sure that they're actually able to, like, it feels like they made a conscious choice. Like, we're going to sacrifice animation quality to make sure we can tell as much of the story as we can, because we start having seasons that are 2 years apart in parts 1 and part 2, as I think happened in season 3. Maybe we're going to lose the audience. Maybe eventually Amazon doesn't want to finish this out, or we only get to finish it with a series of movies or whatever. I feel like they have made a conscious decision, and if the storytelling wasn't good enough, then that would be a bad trade-off to make. But I think the show has made a trade-off, which is that we're going to tell these stories year over year. Because of that, there are just trade-offs, and they made a decision. And especially as someone who is not familiar with the story, maybe you feel differently if you know the beats, and part of the enjoyment out of watching it adapted is to see it adapted. And maybe then that's disappointing and preferred in comic format. But for someone who's experienced it for the first time, I think the trade-off has been absolutely worth it, and makes me so motivated and excited to know that we're 10 months away from another season of the show. It makes me more invested in the show than I would be otherwise. So I think it's a probably necessary and okay trade-off, but I also acknowledge especially when I see the comparisons. I'm no animation expert, but I'll see the comparisons on things. Like, you're not wrong.
That's pretty rough. I think I'm right there with you. Like, if it's not great, but also, like, how common is it to be able to get an annual animation series that is dealing with like the sweeping epic scope that has all these different characters that they're planning to tell over the course of at least 7 seasons? That is very ambitious and not easy to do. And so I have a lot of sympathy for the creators and how they're trying to make this work. One other topic, Patrick, before we get to the events of the finale, and that is, I don't know if you've seen the IMDb ratings for this season, but they're kind of interesting.
I can make a guess. I'm almost certain what you're about to say.
Okay, so there's 8 episodes, and starting with the first episode, I'm gonna list what the ratings are. Okay, 8.2, 9.3, 8.1, 6.6, 9.8, 9.2, 9.9, 8.9. So like overall, very, 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 very positive, except for episode 4.
Does it have the lowest rating of an Invincible episode and the highest rating of an Invincible episode in the same season?
I think so. I think
that
correct.
is right.
Yeah.
It's the episode that I liked too. I know exactly.
Yeah, I know. You talked about it in our premiere discussion. And you
I'm
said,
sorry that they did a chill filler episode. We talked about this in a separate discussion about
yeah,
The
we
Boys.
talked about this during our Boys episode. Patrick Klepek likes filler episodes.
I do.
There's nothing wrong with that. But yes, season 4, episode 4 of Invincible, like season 5, episode 4 of The Boys, was a filler episode where we learn more about Damien Darkblood. Damien Darkblood recruits Invincible to help him solve a problem. And so we go down into the depths of hell and solve the problem. And it doesn't deal with basically any of the other plot lines. It's like completely isolated from any of the other plot lines this season. And I think a lot of people were like, why did we take this pointless detour to solve this? Now, I think very different calculus, Patrick Klepek, in here versus The Boys, because theoretically we have another at least 3 more seasons, hopefully, for the Invincible. So it's like you have the luxury of being able to do a filler episode. I think that this season really did do a good job of establishing momentum behind the Omni-Man storyline, though.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you go away from that, people are like, okay, well, now I'm angry. And that's why they gave Herm, which is the name of the 4th episode this season, such a low rating. But anyway, I wanted to acknowledge that. So let's talk about like the final 2 episodes of the season. Episode 7, Don't Do Anything Rash. And I remember Patrick Klepek texting me like, hey, this last episode of Invincible is incredible. So I'm like, okay, like how good could there's Patrick again exaggerating how good the show is. No, I'm just joking. I don't really think that. But I was like, how good could this possibly be? And meanwhile, I start watching it and I'm like so sucked in because again, Thrag is just like seemingly unstoppable. They're throwing like Omni-Man at him, Invincible at it, like all over, like everyone, like they're firing the Infinity Beam at him. Like nothing seems to be doing anything to stop this guy. And the ways that they demonstrate how powerful Thrag is are so cool. Like when he winds up to punch Omni-Man in the chin, like he creates a windstorm behind him for the punch. And it's just like, oh, that is so badass. You know what I mean? Yeah, go
very
ahead.
Very Dragon Ball Z. Like I feel like the most anime that the Invincible gets is when Viltrumites are fighting Viltrumites and they have to find different ways to convey violence and power and like the hierarchy of like who is or isn't more powerful, because they share a lot of the same power sets, right? Like they're kind of all the same. The Thrag stands out, and is also he has a very a Thanos sort of quality to him, as like depicted in sort of like Infinity War and Endgame, where like they give him an ethos, right? Like he has an ideology, like he has the Viltrumites to this point, empire, like all is ours. Like it's very in many ways like a pretty flat sort of understanding of why are they the way they are. We get we get a complexity through Omni-Man, right? And understand his sympathies and why sort of like the wind shifted for him personally, but Thrag's given some real dimension. Not that you understand. Well, you understand why he's doing what he's doing, even if he's obviously like one of fictional history's greatest monsters. In it, they give him arc. They give him self-justification, and it's part of why. Well, I'm glad he's got like plot armor and also like literal like Viltrumite like power armor, because this is an interesting new character to have playing off everybody, and I don't want him out of the story quite yet.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of overpowered villains, we do just have to acknowledge the whole Conquest resolution. Extremely visceral how Conquest is killed. Like Mark chokes him to death basically, and then Conquest rips all of his insides out.
Ugh.
And then Omni-Man like puts them back in and allows them to heal over the course of several weeks. The whole thing is just really, really out there. The one disappointment this season is I don't think we ever got a follow-up on the fact that Cecil kept Conquest alive. Like I would think that
a real oh shit moment, like when he leaves and they cut to like
right
to see something like, oh, I fucked up. But you're right that there is no resolution. There's not
right.
really
Like Mark theoretically should be pretty pissed about that. Now he's dealing with other things, obviously.
Yes.
But but that was the only thing where I was like, man, that was really not cool of them to keep Conquest alive, and I like Mark would have some feelings about that, basically.
Yeah, and I will say, as a critique of part of what happens once we've centralized the Viltrumites as characters is not only does it flatten their power sets, so it's just like they're all just kind of punching each other and whipping around, like so there's sort of like a lack of dynamism to just what can even be portrayed.
Right.
Also, it is just deeply unclear what the structure of their powers are. And what I mean is, Oliver is ripped in half, but like he's gonna be okay. Mark has his guts literally ripped out of him.
Yeah.
Now it took a long time, but he's gonna be okay. So I don't really understand.
It did take him months to heal, to be fair, But
but it's just like, where does
life end and death begin?
Well, I've watched. Like, I thought Oliver was dead, right? Like,
right.
When that happens, like, wow, like they're gonna kill a kid in the show. They made that as obvious as possible by tearing him in half, because that's what happens with a lot of the Viltrumites, right? Is, hey, they're torn in half. Like, okay, they're dead. You can have a hole in you, but like ripped in half, I think we're done here, unless you're Oliver. And so it's fine. It's like, it's not that big of a deal, but it is something I noted over the course of this season in particular. It was like, well, I can buy like getting the shit beat out of you real bad, and then you come back. But like, if I chopped up Mark and put him in 50 different pieces, but then got all those pieces back together, does Mark go back together at some point?
Right. I mean, let's say you chop off Mark's arm and it grows back, and then you chop off another arm, and then every one of his body parts. Is he the same person? You know what I mean?
This is Thrag's plan: is chop body parts and building.
And Mark's middle name is also Theseus. Anyway, all right. So it's a good point about the power sets, Patrick, because basically, what that means is, like, I think they do a good job of you have Omni-Man and his two sons. You got Iron Man girl, as it were.
Why is she here? Separate question.
Yeah,
not sure why she is here.
You got Seth Rogen's character, and then you got guy with the infinity laser that can blow a hole in everything.
Love that guy.
And so it's like, okay, there's actually like some variety of the, and also the what is it? The Beast guy,
Battle Beast.
Right.
Love. So Battle Beast is just, he's here and then he's not here.
Literally, I appreciate the spirit of the character, but it's like he's barely adding any value.
I don't know. No. Like, he has a one note bit, and every time he plays the note, I'm pointing at the screen and I'm like, Battle Beast.
Yeah,
like,
fair enough.
All he is there is to go like, I thirst for the fight. It's just, it cracks me up every time.
Well, the point being that, like, I think the fact that you have all these different characters with different weaknesses and strengths does make for a more like visually dynamic battle, with all these different characters that we saw in episode 7. Shocking moment when they murder Thetis, like just like out of nowhere, just like rips his head off. Like that was a shock. But I did appreciate what led up to that, which is they decide to use the infinity laser to literally destroy the Viltrumite home planet, which is a pretty hardcore scene, Also backfires horribly, by the way. But I have to say, it's just like unlike anything I've ever seen or contemplated before in a superhero story. Is like using an infinity laser, having 3 superheroes chase after it, and just tear a planet's core apart. But yeah,
conceptually cool, and also visually extremely cool.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool to visualize it, like the heat that it would generate, and the aftermath, and so on and so forth. So I really
I love that it wasn't foreshadowed. Like, it is really something that is improvised by Omni-Man. Once, I know you said maybe it backfired, but I don't know that, like, relative to what. I'm not sure that fight was going a different way, absent maybe. Arguably, it just buys them time to try and find another way through it, which seems like it'll be explored in seasons to come. But I don't think they were taking down Thrag otherwise, and so making him mad and forcing him to choose a different path does at least give them an opportunity to resolve the problem in a different way. So.
they destroyed the Viltrumite homeland, hoping that it would scatter them and make them ineffectual, but it actually just ended up radicalizing them.
Yeah.
Perhaps that is a lesson that people can take away. You know, I don't know. There may be some real world parallels to that. Anyway, final episode of the season, entitled "Don't Leave Me Hanging Here." Everyone returns to Earth. They're afraid that the Viltrumites are going to go and destroy it. But then reading from Wikipedia, Thrag informs Mark that the remaining Viltrumites are indeed on Earth, secretly living among humans to repopulate. He threatens to destroy the planet if they are disturbed, but promises that they will not interfere with human affairs if they are left alone. Mark reluctantly agrees to his terms. Meanwhile, Alan receives a post-mortem message from Thetis and is instructed to use the perfected Scourge virus to eliminate the remaining Viltrumites, even though it may be lethal to humans. End quote. I do like that this season grappled with the idea of, hey, Viltrumites like Omni-Man and Mark are like helping us kill the Viltrumites, but like eventually we're going to need to come around to the fact that they are also Viltrumites, right?
They're
and, like,
nukes, right? Like it's the equivalent, like you have a nuclear weapon. Is it a deterrent? Right. Is it helpful? Well, at some point you still have a nuke.
Right. Yeah. And like eventually you need to deal with the fact that that still exists. And I like that the season is bringing that up. Who knows how the show will end up dealing with it. But the idea that the Viltrumites are on Earth walking amongst us. Damn, dude. Like, and the way Thrag presents the problem, it's like, wow, Mark really has no choice. Because, like, yeah, these Viltrumites could really mess up Earth really easily if they wanted to. You know what I mean? And it's an impossible choice. I do like how I think it's Krieg is the one that already has a girlfriend. Like, he just rolled up on Earth. Like, who knows how long they've been here? But he was apparently able to get a girlfriend in like 30 seconds. So he definitely has Viltrumite game for sure. But yeah, definitely sets up the show for what I assume are really interesting dynamics and conflicts moving forward. Because this is just a wild problem for Earth to have. Is you have like what's going to happen? They're just going to leave peacefully afterwards? I don't think so, right? I doubt it.
But it's a wonderful cliffhanger because I'm not sure how it gets resolved. I'm not sure what Mark does with that. I adored the final episode of the show. It did by framing it through the culmination of this season has been Mark admitting something is wrong, like admitting that the weight is too much and he needs help to carry the burden. And that manifests in some really traumatic PTSD and hallucinations and just trauma manifesting in front of himself. But it also lets the show do, I mean, that opening scene where we don't know that Mark is imagining what's happening on Earth, but they've arrived, they create a tsunami, like with their sheer speed, that woman who like thinks she's safe after like hiding from the Viltrumites, and then the wave comes crashing down. Like, I am like a ball of anxiety. And then cut to that's not actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
And they do this over and over. And every time you keep waiting for that, like one of these is going to be real. Right. That's going to be the fake out. And it allows
And then when Thrag shows up, it's like, oh, that's just in his mind. But then it turns out it's actually him. That was a pretty cool moment. Yeah.
Right. And I think it's, I think Mark makes the quote right decision. In some ways, it's a result of him not allowing his emotions and his anger to fully capture him.
Absolutely.
Obviously, what he's proposing is a nightmare, but the opposite of that is you dragging out a fight in which you most likely die and the planet is devastated.
Well,
and destroyed.
Everyone dies basically. It's not like the Viltrumites are in awesome state after that either. No,
I think ultimately Earth, like, I'm not even sure Thrag wins that. Like, maybe Thrag survives, but I think everyone else is killed in the fight. And I think Mark makes not even a calculation. It is just in the same way that he admits to Cecil, I need to talk to someone. He admits here he is not in a position to negotiate, and now understands throwing his fist is not going to solve this problem. And so it leaves the character, especially relative to what happens with Eve, and just a really like the characters are so rich in this show, which is really, it's The Boys is a different show, but they're both in some way. They're exploring like what if we turned these stories into something episodic and really lived with these characters.
Yeah.
And I think Invincible just does such a great job of thoroughly exploring these characters within the high concept in a way that The Boys often loses track of.
I would say that the Invincible's depiction of some of these familial dynamics strikes me as much more realistic than The Boys, specifically with Mark's mom, right?
Oh, what a
Debbie.
performance. She nails every I cannot recommend more highly. Look up, there have been social clips around of the voice, recording lines,
them in the voiceover booth. Yeah.
It is it's powerful in the moment, and it's powerful to watch the actual behind the scenes process of them recording it.
Patrick, the person you love the most in the world reveals that they are an alien sent to take over Earth and thought of you mostly as a pet this entire time. And then in trying to prove that point to your hybrid child, they killed over 2,000 people just kind of for fun.
Yeah.
Could you ever forgive that person?
I mean, that's the fun question at the heart of what's of the show, right? Is how far does forgiveness go?
Right.
From what angle does it come from? And I don't know that Debbie forgiving Nolan is necessarily they get together again, but it could mean him earning some sort of recognition of what I did,
of what he's done to try and make things right.
Right. Forgiveness is not a return to the status quo, though they do a good job of setting up she's single again, so it's not as though it is. I sort of do expect them. Do you think they'll get back together? Do you think that's the arc that this is going on? They're setting it up in that direction to at least a will they or won't they?
But I'm asking you personally, Patrick Lepic. I don't care.
I'm in this situation.
Yeah.
No, but Debbie Debbie's a better person than I. So, and I think that's what makes her so interesting. She represents, the best of us. She is a quintessentially good person faced with unbelievable choices, and I do think at some point she will forgive him. I do think that's where that's going. And if Debbie can do it, maybe I've got to wonder if I could do it too, David.
Yeah.
Though I don't recommend getting yourself in this situation.
You did mention what happened with Eve. She was pregnant and didn't get around to telling Mark about it and had an abortion. And I think Mark reacts in a very compassionate fashion to that news. He blames himself for her not feeling comfortable talking to him about it. And I think we've really just witnessed Mark's mental deterioration throughout the series. And honestly, I'm glad that Mark is able to just have a little bit of peace for a little bit. It's not going to last for very long. Could be like a couple weeks, but I'm glad that he just is able to be like, hey, the Viltrumites are not imminently going to destroy Earth. And, we'll see what happens next season and how that's all going to affect everything. So Patrick Lepic, any other thoughts on Invincible season 4?
Yeah, like I said, great season. I do my best to obviously it'd be very easy to be spoiled on what's happening next, and I'm enjoying this adaptation so much that I want to experience the story this way, and then maybe go back and read the comics and see. Although I've heard these are a very faithful adaptation, so I'm not saying it's a different medium. There are different strengths and weaknesses, yada yada. But I was reading through one of the message boards that I frequent. Everyone's very good about spoiler tagging, and it was just very funny and very exciting watching people be like, in the same way that Dan Gavazin teased to you about, is you don't know where the show is going, and yet when it gets there, you'll recognize all the pieces were there, and it's really cool. It's I don't know what that means, but I'm so it's strange. Often in especially superhero related media, this far in, oh boy, I am exhausted and need a break. But if you told me Invincible season 5 was going up next week, I'd be hitting play as soon as possible.
Same. I'm disappointed we need to wait till 2027. Right. I left this season on a real high on the show, probably the highest I've ever been. And I'm just really glad we are still talking about it. Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.